She was just my neighbor, mid-40s, quiet, always polite. The day she said, "Stay while I get ready," I didn't think it meant anything. But the way she said it, slow, careful, it felt like she was asking me to stay for something she couldn't say out loud. I never meant to stay that long. She'd said it so casually, "Stay while I get ready," like it was nothing. But the way she said it, slow, deliberate, almost teasingly polite, made it impossible to say no. Her name was Hannah. My neighbor for almost a year, though we'd barely exchanged more than a few words beyond the usual elevator smiles and polite nods. I'd helped her once when her car battery died. That's how this started. She'd stopped me this morning, leaning slightly out of her door, asking if I knew anything about leaky faucets. I did, or at least I pretended to. Her apartment smelled faintly of eucalyptus and something floral. Maybe her shampoo, maybe her perfume. Everything inside was soft and quiet. Light-colored curtains, a half-open book on the coffee table, a mug of cold coffee she'd forgotten. It felt like stepping into a life that had long been lived alone, carefully, but not unhappily. She was in her 40s, maybe 45, beautiful in a way that didn't ask to be noticed, graceful, calm, with lines that told stories I didn't know yet. I remember thinking that her silence carried more weight than most people's words. She thanked me again as I crouched under her sink, pretending to understand the pipes. "I'll just get changed," she said. "Stay while I get ready." Her footsteps faded down the hall. I should have focused on the wrench in my hand, but my mind kept drifting to her voice, to the way she moved, to the faint music playing from another room. It wasn't just attraction. It was curiosity, like trying to solve a puzzle without knowing if you wanted the answer. A few minutes later, she returned, hair slightly damp, sleeves rolled up, no makeup now. She looked different, softer somehow, more real. "Any luck?" she asked, crouching beside me. Our shoulders brushed for the briefest second, just skin against fabric, but it made my breath catch. Yeah, almost. I wasn't even close. She smiled, like she knew I was bluffing, but didn't mind. "You don't have to fix it, you know," she said quietly. "Sometimes I just like having someone around while I deal with things." Her words hung in the air between us. There was no flirtation, not really, just something unspoken. Something that made the small space under her sink feel suddenly too intimate. I tightened the faucet once more and stood up, trying to steady myself. She poured us both water, the silence settling again. The clock ticked softly. Outside, someone's dog barked. "You work long hours, don't you?" she asked. "Yeah, mechanic shop near the highway." She nodded, sipping her water. "You must get tired." "Sometimes," I said, "but it helps fixing things." She looked at me then, really looked. "You can't fix everything," she said. Not like a warning, more like a confession. I didn't know what to say. There was something in her tone, not sadness exactly, but a kind of quiet acceptance I didn't understand yet. When I finally left her apartment, the sun was already setting, painting the hallway in gold. She stood at the door, holding it open, smiling that careful smile again. "Thanks for trying," she said. "Any time." As I walked away, I caught my reflection in the elevator mirror, a faint, stupid grin I couldn't explain. That night, I kept replaying her voice in my head, like I missed something or maybe wanted something. I didn't expect to see her again so soon. 3 days later, a knock came on my door just as I was about to head to work. When I opened it, Hannah was standing there, hair tied up, light sweater, that same soft calmness that somehow made me nervous. "Hey," she said, holding out a small bag. "You left this under my sink." Inside was the wrench I borrowed. My name, written in fading marker, still clung to the handle. I thanked her, but she didn't move to leave. Her eyes lingered past my shoulder, into the dim apartment behind me. "You haven't unpacked much," she said. "Still feels temporary." "Maybe it is," I said before I could stop myself. She smiled faintly. "Everything feels temporary at some point." That's how it began again, small, unimportant moments that kept happening without plan or reason. She'd wave when I passed her door. I'd offer to carry her groceries. Sometimes she'd bring me leftover food she accidentally made too much of. Each time, the distance between us got smaller, not physically, but emotionally. One evening, rain started early, the kind that feels like it's been waiting all week to fall. The power flickered across the building. She knocked again, holding a candle and a bottle of wine. "It's too quiet next door," she said. "Mind if I wait here till it passes?" We sat by the window, the world outside blurring in the rain. The candlelight danced on her face, soft shadows tracing lines that weren't flaws, but memories. She asked about my family. I told her bits, not everything, that my mother had left when I was young, that my father and I rarely spoke. I didn't mean to share that much, but something about her made it easy. She listened without interruption. Then, quietly, she said, "People leave because they think they're protecting someone. Sometimes they're right, sometimes not." Her tone carried a weight, something unspoken, a name she didn't say. I watched her hands as she spoke, the way her thumb brushed the rim of her glass. They were steady, but tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying things you never put down. At one point, the candle's flame flickered out. Neither of us moved to relight it. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick, full of things we both pretended not to feel. She glanced at me, half smiling, half frowning, like she was on the verge of saying something real, something that could change everything. But she didn't. She just looked at me, and that silence felt louder than words. It started raining again that week, heavier this time. The kind of rain that turns streets into mirrors and makes the whole world feel smaller. I just closed up the shop when my phone buzzed. A message from Hannah. "If you're not busy, could you check my heater? It's making a strange noise." I don't know why I smiled. Maybe because she texted. Maybe because it felt like she didn't have to. When I arrived, her apartment was dimly lit, smelling faintly of rain and jasmine tea. She wore a light gray cardigan and had her hair tied loosely, strands falling over her face. The heater hummed quietly in the corner, not broken at all. "Seems fine to me," I said, after a moment. She didn't answer right away. She just stood there, watching the rain through the window, arms folded like she was holding herself together. "Maybe I just didn't want to be alone tonight," she said softly. That sentence changed the air. I didn't move closer. I didn't know if I should. But something in her voice, the quiet ache, the honesty, made me feel like I'd already crossed some invisible line. We ended up sitting at her small kitchen table, the rain tapping the window like it was trying to get in. She poured tea, her hand steady, her eyes not meeting mine. We talked about everything except what mattered. Work, whether small things that meant nothing but filled the silence between us. Then, for a moment, the world seemed to pause. The power flickered again, and in that half-second of darkness, our hands brushed across the table, just fingers grazing. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. When the light came back, she looked up, and the look in her eyes wasn't confusion. It was knowing, like she'd already thought about this moment and decided not to stop it. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. My hand moved slightly toward hers, not intentionally, just instinctively. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Then her phone buzzed on the counter, the sound sharp, jarring. She stood up too quickly, almost knocking her chair over. "Sorry," she murmured, answering it. I try not to listen, but I caught fragments. "No, I'm fine. No, don't come over, please." When she turned back, her expression had changed, softer, but distant again, like she closed a door inside herself. I tried to smile. "Guess the heater's fine after all." She nodded, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Yeah, thank you for coming." There was a pause, the kind of pause that stretches so thin it hurts. My hand was halfway to hers when she said, almost whispering, "You should go now." And I did, but only my body left that room. After that night in the basement, things went quiet again, not the kind of silence that fades, but the kind that lingers. I kept catching myself pausing at her door, listening for sounds that weren't there. Her laughter through the wall, the clink of dishes, even her humming when she watered her plants. But nothing, just stillness. Then one morning, there was an envelope slipped under my door. No name on it, just my apartment number, written in neat, careful handwriting. Inside was a photo, an old one. A woman who looked like Hannah, younger, standing beside a man and a little boy near a lake. Her smile was wider, freer. On the back, written faintly in ink that had almost faded. He looked so much like you. I just stood there, staring at it, not breathing for a few seconds. That afternoon, I knocked on her door. No answer at first. Then, slowly it opened. She stood there, pale, tired, as if she already knew what I'd seen. "I shouldn't have given you that," she said softly. "You didn't," I replied. "You just let it find me." She gave a small, broken laugh and turned away, motioning me inside. The apartment looked different. A few boxes stacked near the door, the faint scent of cleaning spray. She was preparing to leave. "I had a son," she said finally, sitting down. "He would have been about your age now." The world seemed still. She spoke slowly, not looking at me. "He died in an accident. His father left after that. I stayed here because I didn't know where else to go." Her voice didn't shake. That almost made it worse. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words didn't come. Instead, I sat across from her, letting the silence speak. "You reminded me of him," she whispered. "Not just your face, the way you try to fix things. The way you look at people like they still have time." Her hands trembled slightly. I wanted to reach for them, but I didn't. "Not yet. I thought if I stayed away, it would stop feeling confusing," she said. "But it didn't. You were the first person I've let into this apartment since he died." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You didn't do anything wrong." She looked up, eyes glistening. "Maybe not, but I stopped living, and you made me remember what it felt like to be alive again." That scared me. There was a long pause, soft, heavy, but different from before. Something in her had shifted. The air between us wasn't full of guilt anymore. It was something warmer. She took a breath like she hadn't allowed herself to in years. And for the first time, she looked at me without fear. The night after she told me about her son, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, not the calm, composed version I was used to, but the one that trembled when she spoke his name. The next evening, I found myself standing outside her door again, holding nothing but the silence between us. I wasn't sure if she'd open it. I wasn't sure if she should. But when the door clicked and she appeared, barefoot in a soft gray sweater, she didn't look surprised. "Just tired. Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. I shook my head. "No." She stepped aside without another word, letting me in. The apartment was dim, just the small kitchen light on, throwing a pale glow across the room. A mug of tea sat untouched on the table. Neither of us tried to talk at first. She moved around quietly, pouring a second cup, her movements slow, deliberate. I watched her, trying to understand how someone could look so fragile and strong at the same time. When she finally spoke, it wasn't what I expected. "You make it hard to stay careful," she said softly. I froze. "Careful?" She nodded, her eyes on the steam rising from her mug. "For years, I built walls. They kept me safe, or at least quiet. But you keep finding ways through them, and I don't know what to do with that." I didn't answer right away. The truth was, I didn't have an answer. I just stepped closer, slow enough for her to move if she wanted to. She didn't. "I'm not trying to break anything," I said. I stopped, searching for the right words. "I just don't want you to be alone in it." Her breath caught, barely audible. "You shouldn't carry other people's ghosts," she whispered. "Maybe not," I said. "But I think some ghosts just want to be seen." She looked up then, and there it was, that quiet collapse, that moment when two people stop pretending they aren't already falling. The room went still. No grand gesture, no confessions. Just the sound of rain against the window and the faint hum of her breath. I reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. Her fingers tightened around mine, hesitant at first, then sure. We stayed like that, standing in the half-light, holding on as if the world outside didn't exist. No words, no promises. Just two people who'd run out of reasons to stay apart. After a while, she leaned her forehead against mine. The scent of her hair, the warmth of her skin, the quiet rhythm of her breathing. It felt like something breaking open, but gently. She didn't say she loved me, but she let her guard down, and that was louder than any "I love you" ever could be. Would you like me to continue with Blue Square Part 7? The Afterglow and What We Learned, 500 words. Next, you said, 7 ChatGPT said, Blue Square Part 7. The Afterglow and What We Learned, 500 words from the younger man's POV. It's been months since that night. The world outside hasn't changed much. Same rain, same hallway, same quiet hum of the city that never really sleeps. But something in me has. Hannah still lives next door. We don't talk every day, and maybe that's what keeps it real. Sometimes I'll find a mug left outside my door, still warm. Sometimes she'll call just to ask if I've eaten. We don't need to name what this is. It lives in the small gestures, the quiet spaces where words would only make it smaller. The first time I saw her after that night, she was watering the plants by her window. The light hit her just right, soft, morning gold, and she looked peaceful in a way I hadn't seen before. Not happy exactly, just alive. She noticed me watching and smiled. "You should open your curtains more," she said. "Let the light in." "I do," I told her. "When it's worth it." She laughed, the real kind, not the careful one she used to give me. And in that moment, I realized something. Not everything that heals needs to be owned. Some things just need to be witnessed. There are still moments when the old ache returns, when I see the photo she left on my table, or when I catch her staring at the rain a little too long. But I don't try to fix it anymore. I've learned that some pain doesn't need fixing. It just needs company. Sometimes late at night, I'll hear her playing piano, soft, slow, hesitant at first, like she's remembering something she used to love. I'll sit by my wall and listen, not wanting to interrupt. It's her way of speaking when words fall short. People might not understand what we are, not friends, not lovers in the way stories usually tell it. We're something in between, something quieter, something real. She once told me that love doesn't always look like beginnings. Sometimes it looks like peace after a long storm. I think I finally understand that now. I didn't just fall for an older woman. I fell into something rare, something true. She taught me that love doesn't have to be loud to mean something. That sometimes the softest connections are the ones that last longest. Not because they burn bright, but because they never need to. And I hope, if you're listening, you find something like that too. Sparkle's Engagement CTA. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?